I remember the morning of November 5th like it was yesterday. The Virtual Sky Observatory had just released 2 brand new images of an interstellar visitor called 3I Atlas. And honestly, what I saw left me scratching my head, and not in the usual, oh, that's interesting way, but in a full-on what the heck is going on here kind of way. The images showed Atlas as a tight, compact ball of light. No tail, no obvious cometary fuzziness, just a clean little orb floating there in space. It barely looked different from the shots taken by the Hubble Space Telescope back in July 2025. Now, here's the kicker. Atlas should have lost at least 13% of its mass. Think 5 billion tons of cosmic dust and ice by then. But there was no glowing cloud of gas or dust around it. Nothing to explain its strange acceleration. It was like a boxer who's supposed to be down for the count but keeps getting up and dancing. I'm Dr. Jack Hollis, astrophysicist at the University of York, and let me tell you, this wasn't your everyday space rock. For comparison, we've tracked plenty of comets before. Take Comet Lemon, for example. Lemon's your classic dirty snowball, with a bright, transparent tail streaming away from the sun, pushed by solar radiation like a cosmic windsock. Atlas? Nope. It stayed suspiciously pristine. No tail, no haze, just smooth sailing through the void. Now, the numbers were what really got people talking. On October 29th, as Atlas zipped past its closest point to the sun, it suddenly sped up in ways that defied Newton's laws, and pretty much all the laws of physics I learned in school. NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab reported that Atlas's actual position had veered off by 4 arcseconds from where all the models said it should be. That might sound tiny if you're thinking about angles, but at 126 million miles from the sun, that's like missing your front door by a mile. Atlas was accelerating at about 0.2 millimeters per second squared. To put that in perspective, it's like the object got an invisible kick pushing it 80 kilometers off its predicted path in just 1 month. And get this, it was moving in 2 directions at once. One push was directly away from the sun, the other was sideways, like it was trying to moonwalk through space. If I tried to explain that move at a dance club, I'd probably get kicked out. NASA assured everyone that Atlas wasn't coming anywhere near Earth, but the odd orbit meant it might swing close to Jupiter in March 2026. Astronomers were already marking their calendars. So what was causing this mysterious push? Usually, comets accelerate because ice on their surface heats up, turns to gas, and blasts off like a jet engine, a process called outgassing. But to explain Atlas's speed, the amount of gas needed would be absurd, far beyond what any comet we know could produce. It would have to lose billions of tons of mass in just a few weeks, creating a massive glowing cloud visible from Earth. But no such cloud showed up. That's when whispers of something else started floating around, some kind of unknown mechanism, or maybe even an artificial force nudging Atlas along. I know, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel, but the data just wouldn't fit the usual explanations. Harvard's Avi Loeb ran the numbers. Atlas weighs about 33 billion tons, roughly 6 kilometers across. A behemoth compared to other interstellar objects we've seen. To get pushed that hard naturally, it would have had to shed about 1/6 of its mass around perihelion. Imagine that much gas pouring off. It'd shine like a spotlight in the night sky. But telescopes, from ground-based observatories to Hubble and the James Webb Space Telescope, saw nothing. December 19th was set to be the big day. That's when Atlas would make its closest approach to Earth, about 167 million miles away. If the gas cloud was really there, we'd see it. If not, the scientific community was bracing for a storm of questions with no easy answers. I stayed glued to the data, knowing that this wasn't just about a comet anymore. Something bigger was at play, and whatever it was about to change how we see the universe, and maybe even our place in it. The closer December 19th crept in, the more Atlas seemed to taunt us. It wasn't just its baffling acceleration or the lack of any visible gas cloud. No, there were layers to this mystery that made it feel less like a natural phenomenon and more like a cosmic puzzle designed to mess with our heads. First off, the orbit itself was downright suspicious. Atlas's path around the sun was tilted barely 5 degrees from the plane where all the planets orbit, the ecliptic plane as we call it. Now, if this thing really came from another star system, it could have shown up from any random direction in the sky. The odds of it aligning so perfectly with our solar system's planetary highway? About the same as me winning the lottery, twice while getting hit by a meteor. Statistically, it was practically impossible. Astronomers started joking that Atlas must have been taking driving lessons from NASA's best, because it was following the cosmic equivalent of the M1 motorway instead of a dirt back road. But then came the real kicker. In July and August 2025, Atlas shot out a jet of material. Not away from the sun like every comet we know, but straight toward it. Imagine running headfirst with your hair blowing in your face. That's the kind of physics-defying stunt this thing pulled. I remember staring at those spectral graphs late into the night, trying to wrap my head around it. It was like the universe was flipping me off, saying, "You think you understand the rules? Think again." The jet not only broke every cometary rule but also pointed right at the sun, as if Atlas was taunting the star itself. And then there was its color, a brilliant, almost electric blue. Comets usually glow with a soft yellowish or reddish light, because cold surfaces shine red and dust scatters light that way. But Atlas? It was bluer than the sun's surface temperature itself, radiating energy at levels that simply shouldn't be possible without some kind of internal powerhouse. At this point, the scientific community was divided. Some insisted there must be a natural explanation hiding somewhere. Maybe ionized gases like carbon monoxide or something exotic we hadn't considered yet. But others, including Avi Loeb, pushed the idea that we couldn't just dismiss the data because it didn't fit the textbooks. That's bad science, he said. You can't ignore the facts just because they're inconvenient. In the coffee-stained halls of the university, the topic of Atlas sparked endless debates. Our department's resident skeptic, Martin, even joked that if Atlas turned out to be an alien probe, he'd finally have proof that his mother-in-law was right all along about government cover-ups. I half-joked back that I hoped whatever was out there had better taste in music than most earthlings. But beyond the humor, the implications were staggering. If Atlas wasn't a natural object, then what was it? An ancient probe? A piece of lost alien technology? Or something so advanced that it made our best spacecraft look like rusty bicycles? The more I looked at the data, the more I realized we were standing on the edge of a scientific revolution, or a cosmic joke with a punchline none of us were ready for. And just when I thought I'd seen it all, another anomaly popped up. Spectroscopic analysis showed Atlas was made of materials rarely found in space. More nickel than iron, and in ratios common to high-temperature alloys used in jet engines and spacecraft here on Earth. That wasn't the kind of thing you find lying around in a comet's dirty snowball. It was like finding a vintage Aston Martin engine inside a tractor. Something didn't add up. As the days ticked closer to December 19th, the tension in observatories worldwide was palpable. We weren't just waiting for a close approach. We were waiting for a revelation. Would Atlas finally reveal its secrets? Or was it going to keep playing hide and seek with the universe? One thing was certain, whatever happened next was going to rewrite the rulebook or shatter it completely. The night before December 19th, I found myself alone in the observatory's control room, the glow from a dozen monitors casting eerie shadows across the walls. Outside, the English countryside was wrapped in a crisp winter chill, but inside, the air buzzed with a mix of excitement and unease. Everyone else had gone home, leaving me and the blinking constellation of instruments to keep vigil over our enigmatic guest, Atlas. I sipped lukewarm coffee, my eyes flicking between spectral readouts and real-time images streaming from telescopes scattered across the globe, from the rolling hills of Devon to the deserts of Arizona, and even from space-based observatories orbiting Earth. Every feed showed the same thing. A compact, luminous orb drifting steadily closer, its surface glowing a strange, electric blue that seemed almost hypnotic. As I stared at the images, my mind wandered to the woman we'd nicknamed Luna in the team, Dr. Emily Carter. She was the kind of person who could make astrophysics sound like poetry. Tonight, she arrived in a sleek emerald green dress that shimmered under the dim observatory lights, paired with jet black ankle boots that clicked softly as she moved. Around her neck hung a delicate silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon, catching the light each time she tilted her head to study the data. There was something mesmerizing about the way she balanced intellect with an effortless charm, and yes, a subtle hint of allure that made the long nights more bearable. "Jack," she said, breaking my reverie. You ever get the feeling that Atlas isn't just passing through? Like it's watching us back? I chuckled nervously. If it starts sending us cosmic tweets, we're doomed. She smiled, but her eyes held a flicker of something serious, curiosity tinged with a trace of fear. I don't know. The polarization patterns, the metal alloys, that impossible jet toward the sun. It's like it's alive, or at least designed to act that way. I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. The polarization data was unlike anything we'd ever seen. Light reflecting off Atlas didn't scatter randomly like with natural dust or ice, but showed a pattern suggesting smooth, reflective surfaces, maybe even panels arranged at precise angles. In other words, something engineered. As Emily and I pored over the latest spectrographs, a sudden alert blinked on my console. The James Webb Space Telescope had captured a subtle but distinct spike in infrared emissions from Atlas, too precise to be random noise. My heart skipped a beat. Could this be the gas cloud we'd been waiting for? Or was it something else entirely? Emily, you seeing this? I asked, pointing to the screen. Her brow furrowed. That's unexpected. If that's outgassing, it's coming from a tiny, incredibly focused source. Like a jet with pinpoint accuracy. I rubbed my chin, which would explain the sideways acceleration. But what kind of comet behaves like a spacecraft with thrusters? We both knew the answer was staring us in the face but refused to be spoken aloud. Outside, the wind howled softly, rattling the old observatory windows. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted, a lonely sound that seemed to punctuate the eerie silence between us and the cosmos. Suddenly, a message popped up on my screen from a colleague in Australia. Jack, you need to see this. Atlas's brightness just spiked by an order of magnitude. It's like a lighthouse beam switched on. My pulse quickened. The brightness jump was unprecedented. Atlas was glowing twice as fast and twice as bright as any comet ever recorded. The blue hue intensified, almost as if it were powered by something beyond natural processes. Emily whispered, "It's like it's signaling." I swallowed hard. Or preparing for something. For a moment, the room felt charged with electricity, the kind that comes before a storm or a revelation. As we watched, Atlas seemed to pulse, its light flickering rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. I glanced at Emily, whose eyes were wide with a mix of awe and apprehension. "Jack," she said softly, "if this is a message, who do you think it's for?" I didn't have an answer, but deep down, I knew we were about to find out, and nothing in the universe would ever feel the same again. In the early hours of December 19th, the observatory hummed with a strange energy, as if the very air was holding its breath. Outside, the sleepy town of Ashford lay blanketed in frost, the streets deserted except for the occasional flicker of headlights from late-night drivers. Inside, Emily and I stood side by side, eyes glued to the screens that tracked Atlas's approach. She changed into a deep burgundy sweater that hugged her figure just enough to be distracting without trying. Her dark curls tumbled over one shoulder, softening the sharp lines of her focused face. A thin silver bracelet jingled faintly as she tapped her fingers on the table, the only sound besides the quiet beeping of instruments. "It's closer than ever," she murmured, voice barely above a whisper. "And still no sign of that massive gas cloud we expected." I nodded, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. The absence of a glowing coma around Atlas was the elephant in the room, one that none of us could explain. The natural laws were screaming for a plume of steam and dust, but Atlas remained stoic, a dark horse that refused to play by the rules. Suddenly, the main monitor flickered, and a new image appeared, a high-resolution shot from the Very Large Telescope in Chile. The surface of Atlas was visible with unprecedented clarity, and what I saw made me catch my breath. It wasn't just a rock. There were geometric shapes, flat panels and sharp edges, that caught the light differently, casting shadows that no natural formation could create. The blue glow seemed to emanate from beneath a metallic shell, fractured like the cracked paint on an old spacecraft. Emily leaned in, her eyes wide. "Jack, this isn't just an interstellar object. It's a relic, maybe a probe, or worse, a sentry." My mind raced. Could a civilization millions of years old have sent this here? Was Atlas a scout, silently mapping our solar system like a cosmic tourist with a very expensive camera? Or something more sinister, an observer with unknown intentions? Before I could voice my thoughts, an incoming call interrupted us. It was Dr. Alan Pierce from JPL, his voice tense and urgent. "Jack, Emily, you're not going to believe this. Atlas's trajectory just shifted again. It's speeding up, much faster than before, and it's aiming closer to Earth's orbit." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. How close? Closer than we predicted. We're recalculating now, but it's definitely cutting the corner near Mars's path and swinging tighter toward us. Emily's fingers clenched into fists. That's unexpected. Is it still on the same tilt? Parallel to the ecliptic. Almost perfectly, which just makes it creepier. We exchanged grim looks. The idea that Atlas might be maneuvering deliberately, choosing its route with precision, sent a shiver down my spine. It wasn't just drifting through space, it was navigating. I glanced back at the screen. The blue glow was intensifying, pulsing like a beacon against the black void. For a moment, I imagined it as a cosmic lighthouse, flashing a silent warning, or perhaps a greeting. The room fell silent except for the steady ticking of the clock. In that quiet, I felt the weight of something vast and unknowable pressing down on us. Whatever Atlas was, it was no ordinary visitor. And as the first pale light of dawn crept over the horizon, I realized we were running out of time. The greatest discovery or the greatest threat was about to arrive. But the question that haunted me most was this. If Atlas was watching us, was it waiting for something? Or someone? The morning fog hung thick over Ashford as I stepped outside for a breath of fresh air, the chill biting through my coat. The sky was a pale, hesitant gray, but even through the mist, I could feel the weight of anticipation settling over the town and, quite frankly, over me. Atlas was closing in, and with every tick of the clock, the impossible seemed more tangible. Back inside the observatory, Emily was already at her station, fingers flying across the keyboard. She wore a crisp white blouse, sleeves rolled up just past her elbows, revealing a slender wrist adorned with a thin leather strap watch. Her eyes, sharp and focused, betrayed a flicker of exhaustion beneath the excitement. "Jack," she said without looking up, "you need to see this." I moved over just as the latest data from the array of telescopes poured in. The spectral analysis showed something new, an irregular pattern of electromagnetic pulses emanating from Atlas, intermittent and uneven, like Morse code across the void. My heart sped up. It was the kind of thing that sent chills down a scientist's spine. "Is this some kind of signal?" I asked. Emily nodded. "It's definitely artificial. Natural objects don't send out structured pulses like this. It could be a beacon or a message." I ran a hand through my hair, suddenly feeling the weight of every sci-fi novel I'd ever scoffed at. "Great. So, we're either about to make first contact or get our heads blown off by alien spam." She shot me a wry smile. "If it's spam, I hope it comes with a reply stop option." The room was suddenly alive with nervous energy. Our colleagues poured in, drawn by the news, each bringing their own theories and fears. Dr. Martin, ever the skeptic, cracked a joke to break the tension. "Maybe it's just a cosmic billboard advertising extraterrestrial timeshares." I laughed, but it was hollow. The data was serious, and so were the stakes. Outside, news of Atlas's approach had leaked, and the local cafe was buzzing with speculation. I stopped by for a quick coffee. The barista, a young woman named Sarah with bright red hair pulled into a messy bun, smiled nervously as she handed me the cup. "So, are we all doomed? Or is this just a really fancy comet?" I grinned. "Let's just say it's the universe's way of keeping us on our toes." Back at the observatory, the pulses from Atlas grew stronger, and analysts began decoding the patterns. Amidst the static, a repeating sequence emerged, something that resembled prime numbers, the universal language of intelligence. Emily's voice trembled slightly. "Jack, this could be a greeting, the first proof that we're not alone." I felt a rush of exhilaration and fear. The moment humanity had dreamed of for centuries was unfolding right before our eyes. Just then, an alert flashed on the screen. Atlas was exhibiting a sudden burst of acceleration, the biggest yet. The trajectory shifted sharply, now pointing almost directly toward Earth's orbit, closer than any of our earlier calculations had predicted. The room fell into stunned silence. "Is it coming here?" someone whispered. Emily's eyes locked with mine. "I think it's deciding to." Outside, the fog began to lift, revealing a sky streaked with the faintest hint of dawn. Somewhere beyond our atmosphere, a silent visitor was racing toward us, carrying secrets that could change everything. And as the sun peeked over the horizon, I realized we were no longer just observers. We were participants in a cosmic event with no clear ending. But one thought lingered, cold and unyielding. If Atlas had a purpose, what and who were we about to meet? As midday settled over Ashford, the observatory was a hive of restless energy. The usual quiet hum of computers was punctuated by urgent conversations and the sharp clicks of cameras snapping images faster than ever. Atlas was no longer just a distant mystery. It was a looming presence, and every new piece of data felt like pulling back a curtain on a cosmic stage. Emily was at the center of it all, now dressed in a tailored navy blazer over a simple black top, her hair pulled back into a sleek ponytail. The subtle sparkle of a silver ring caught the light whenever she gestured at the screens, her fingers dancing over the controls with practiced precision. There was a magnetic intensity to her, equal parts determination and a quiet thrill that something monumental was unfolding. I stood beside her, trying to steady my own racing thoughts. The electromagnetic pulses we'd detected earlier had evolved into something more complex. Patterns emerged, mathematical sequences layered with frequencies that hinted at modulation, like language wrapped in code. It was as if Atlas was speaking, though the message remained tantalizingly just out of reach. "Jack," Emily said, her voice low but steady, "we're definitely witnessing an intelligence trying to communicate, but it's not just random beeps. It's deliberate, structured, and repeating. Whoever or whatever is behind this knows we're listening." I nodded, unable to shake the feeling that we were eavesdropping on a conversation meant for someone, or something else. "Do you think it knows we're here?" She paused, eyes fixed on the shifting graphs. "I think it's more than aware of us. The trajectory changes, the bursts of acceleration, they're too calculated to be accidental. Atlas is moving with purpose." Just then, a new alert lit up the main screen. The brightness of Atlas had surged again, this time accompanied by a flickering pattern of light, pulses synchronized with the electromagnetic signals. The blue glow seemed to ripple across its surface, like waves on a metallic sea. I couldn't help but feel a shiver run down my spine. "It's like a cosmic lighthouse, sending out a beacon." Emily's lips curled into a half-smile. "Or a warning." The room fell into a hush as we watched the strange dance unfold. Outside, the winter sun cast long shadows across the frost-kissed fields, the peaceful English landscape at odds with the extraordinary events unfolding above. Suddenly, the monitoring systems detected something unexpected. A sharp spike in high-energy particles emanating from Atlas. It wasn't radiation typical of comets or asteroids. It had the signature of an engineered source, something akin to a plasma drive or an exotic propulsion system. Martin, ever the cynic, muttered from the corner. "Well, that's one way to crash the neighborhood." Emily shot him a sharp glance but didn't argue. The data was clear, and it was rewriting every rule we thought we knew. As the afternoon wore on, news outlets began broadcasting live updates. The public's fascination grew, fueled by speculation and a mix of awe and fear. Social media exploded with theories, some hopeful, others downright apocalyptic. I found myself torn between excitement and dread. Here we were, on the brink of the greatest discovery in human history, and yet the unknown stretched before us like a dark void. Emily broke the silence. "Jack, whatever Atlas is, it's challenging everything we thought possible. And the closer it gets, the more it feels like we're not just watching history, we're part of it." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of those words settle deep in my chest. The countdown wasn't just to a close approach anymore. It was to a moment that could redefine humanity's place in the cosmos. And as the sun dipped lower, casting the observatory in a warm amber glow, I couldn't shake the growing sense that whatever awaited us was both a revelation and a reckoning. The evening sky over Ashford was a deep, velvet canvas speckled with stars. Yet inside the observatory, the atmosphere was anything but calm. The tension was tangible, thick enough to cut with a knife. Atlas was now less than 150 million miles away, closer than Mars ever gets, and every instrument was locked onto its every flicker and pulse. Emily had changed again, this time into a sleek black dress that hugged her silhouette with elegant simplicity. The subtle shimmer of a sapphire necklace rested just above her collarbone, catching the dim light as she moved with purposeful grace. There was a magnetic energy about her tonight, a mix of intellect and something almost hypnotic. I caught myself watching her more than the data screens, which was dangerous when you're supposed to be on the brink of a cosmic breakthrough. "Jack," she said softly, breaking my distracted gaze. "Have you noticed how Atlas's light pulses seem to sync with the Earth's rotation? It's like it's calibrating itself to our day-night cycle." I frowned, pulling up the timing graphs. "You mean it's adapting to us? That's unsettling." She shrugged, lips twitching into a half-smile. "Or maybe polite. Alien Etiquette 101. Don't blindside your hosts." A dry laugh escaped me, but it didn't erase the chill creeping up my spine. The more we watched, the less Atlas behaved like a random visitor and more like a carefully programmed observer. Suddenly, the room was bathed in a bluish glow as the main screen lit up with a burst of data. Spectroscopy readings showed a sudden flare of ionized gases, carbon dioxide and nitrogen, but in amounts far below what would be expected for any natural cometary outburst. The emission was localized, like a vent on a spacecraft firing briefly before shutting down. Martin, who had been quietly monitoring from the corner, muttered, "Looks like it's got a thruster." Emily's eyes locked onto the data, sharp and unblinking. If that's true, then the whole outgassing hypothesis falls apart. "Atlas is powered." I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. Powered by what? And for what purpose? Before anyone could answer, an unexpected alert blared through the room. The trajectory predictions had shifted again. Atlas's path was deviating toward Earth's orbital plane, closer than any of our simulations had anticipated. The new calculations suggested a near miss, but close enough to raise eyebrows and pulse rates. "Are we sure this isn't a glitch?" I asked, voice wavering. Emily shook her head. "The data's solid. Atlas is maneuvering. It's not just drifting. It's steering." The implications hit us like a thunderclap. If Atlas was steering, then it had intent, intelligence, purpose. Outside, the night wind rattled the old observatory windows, a mournful sound that seemed to echo the unease in our hearts. Emily turned to me, eyes reflecting the cold blue light of the screen. "Jack, what if this isn't just a visitor? What if it's a messenger? Or worse, a scout?" I swallowed hard, the words hanging heavy between us. "Then the question isn't what it wants. It's what we want from it." And in that moment, as the stars wheeled overhead and Atlas raced closer, I realized we were no longer just scientists observing a cosmic anomaly. We were participants in a story that might define the future of humanity or its end. But the darkest question remained unanswered. If Atlas was watching us, what had it seen so far? The clock in the observatory ticked past midnight, but sleep was a distant memory. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that made every breath feel heavy, every second stretch infinitely. Atlas was now less than 120 million miles away, its eerie blue glow dominating the monitors like a silent sentinel. Emily stood by the large window, the moonlight casting silver highlights across her auburn hair, which cascaded in loose waves over a midnight blue blouse. The subtle curve of her neckline hinted at a delicate lace trim beneath, lending a quiet sensuality that contrasted with the cold data before us. She rubbed her temples, exhaustion and exhilaration battling behind her deep green eyes. "Jack," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "The polarization patterns we're seeing, They're unlike anything natural. The light is reflecting off surfaces arranged in precise geometries. It's as if Atlas is cloaked in panels, solar collectors, maybe even communication arrays. I leaned closer to the screen, tracing the intricate patterns that shimmered like a kaleidoscope. The idea of a comet covered in engineered panels was almost laughably sci-fi. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Could we be looking at the remains of an ancient spacecraft? Or maybe a probe sent to study us? I asked, feeling a thrill that was equal parts fear and fascination. Emily nodded slowly. And its surface temperature hotter than the sun itself. That blue light isn't just reflected. It's emitted. Something inside is generating immense energy. A sudden alert snapped us back to reality. The latest readings indicated a burst of high-energy photons shooting from Atlas's sun-facing side. An energy output unlike any natural object. Theories about antimatter propulsion and directed photon drives flooded my mind. Concepts I'd only ever encountered in speculative physics papers. Jack, Emily said, eyes wide. If this is true propulsion, then Atlas isn't just passing through. It's moving with intention. Perhaps even intelligence. The room fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the hum of machines and distant rumblings of thunder outside. Somewhere beyond the atmosphere, Atlas glided closer. A cosmic enigma wrapped in a glowing blue shell. Then, as if on cue, a new signal pulsed through the array. A complex, repeating sequence that matched patterns found in the infamous 1977 WOW signal. The coincidence was staggering. Both originated from the same region near the Sagittarius constellation. My breath caught. The implications were staggering. Was Atlas a piece of the puzzle behind one of humanity's greatest mysteries? Emily's voice trembled with awe. Jack, this changes everything. We may be witnessing not just a visitor, but a message. A connection spanning decades, maybe centuries. I felt the weight of history pressing down. The stars outside twinkled indifferently, unaware of the drama unfolding beneath them. And yet, as Atlas pulsed its eerie blue light, I couldn't shake the growing fear that we were being watched, and that whatever was watching us had been waiting a long, long time. The night deepened, and with it, the mystery thickened. What secrets lay hidden within Atlas's glowing heart? And were we ready to uncover the truth? The first pale light of dawn seeped through the observatory's tall windows, casting long shadows across the cluttered desks and scattered papers. Outside, the streets of Ashford remained quiet, but inside, the tension had reached a fever pitch. Atlas was now less than 100 million miles away, its incandescent blue glow dominating every screen, every instrument, every whispered conversation. Emily had slipped into a soft gray cardigan over a fitted black dress, the delicate silver chain around her neck catching the early light. She moved with a restless energy, her gaze flickering between the data streams and the sky beyond the glass. There was a nervous edge to her usual calm, a silent acknowledgement that the moment of reckoning was near. Jack, she said abruptly, her voice cutting through the low murmur of the room. We've just received confirmation from multiple observatories. Atlas is beginning to fragment. I stared at the screen, where images from the very large telescope showed thin streams of debris peeling away from the main body, like a cracked egg shedding its shell. The fragmentation was slow but undeniable, a subtle shattering that no natural comet had ever displayed under these conditions. Is this what we expected? I asked, swallowing hard. Emily shook her head. No. None of the natural models predicted this. And yet, it's happening just as it reached perihelion. The data was both thrilling and terrifying. On one hand, it lent credence to the idea that Atlas was a physical object, subject to the stresses of solar proximity. On the other, the way it fragmented, calm, controlled, almost deliberate, felt eerily unnatural. Martin piped up from the corner. Maybe it's just cracking under pressure. Space rocks do that all the time. Sure, Emily replied. But not with a surface like this. Not with those energy emissions. Not with the signals we're still decoding. The room fell silent again as we all grappled with the implications. The fragments glowed the same intense blue, and the polarization patterns suggested that even the debris retained the strange engineered surfaces. Then, as if the universe wanted to remind us how little control we had, an unexpected burst of electromagnetic radiation swept through the observatory's receivers. The signal wasn't random, it was a complex, repeating code, more intricate than anything we'd seen before. Emily's eyes widened. This is a message, and it's getting clearer. My heart pounded. The possibility that Atlas was not just a visitor but a communicator was no longer theory, it was reality. But what was it trying to say? Was it a warning? An invitation? Or something far more cryptic? Outside, the sun rose fully, bathing the world in golden light. Yet inside, the shadows of uncertainty deepened, and as the pieces of Atlas drifted through space, breaking apart yet still pulsing with life, one question hung heavier than ever. Were we ready to hear the answer? Because whatever came next would change everything. Night had fallen again over Ashford, but the observatory was bathed in an unnatural electric blue glow, the eerie light of Atlas's fragments reflecting off every surface. The air was thick with anticipation and a strange, almost sacred silence. Outside, the world seemed oblivious to the cosmic drama unfolding just beyond the horizon. Emily stood by the main console, her silhouette framed by the pulsating screens. Tonight, she wore a deep crimson blouse that contrasted sharply with her pale skin, the fabric clinging just enough to hint at the curves beneath without distracting from the gravity of the moment. A thin silver chain glimmered at her throat, catching the light with every small movement. Her eyes, sharp and unwavering, held the weight of 1,000 questions. "Jack," she said quietly, "we've decoded enough of the signal. It's a map." I leaned in, breath caught. The message was a star chart, coordinates pointing far beyond our solar system, to a place deep in the Sagittarius Arm, near the origin of the WOW. Signaled decades ago. "A cosmic breadcrumb trail," I whispered. "A path laid out for us to follow." Emily nodded slowly. "Or a summons." The room was silent except for the soft hum of machines. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, indifferent yet somehow complicit in the unfolding mystery. Suddenly, the monitors flickered, and a new data stream began. A low-frequency pulse that synchronized perfectly with the fragment's blue glow. The pattern was unmistakable. A countdown. 33 days, Emily breathed. Until what, we don't know. A chill ran down my spine. The fragments were not just debris. They were part of a larger mechanism, a cosmic clock ticking down to an unknown event. As the realization settled, a shudder ran through the building. The power flickered, then stabilized. Emily glanced at me, eyes wide. "Jack, I think Atlas isn't just watching us. It's waiting." The question hung in the air, heavy and unspoken. Waiting for what? For whom? And what would happen when the countdown reached 0? Outside, the universe held its breath. And so did we.